It's a weekend wallop that could be remembered as the storm of a lifetime in some parts of the mid-Atlantic. Nearly 27 inches fell in Philadelphia Saturday, marking the city's second biggest snowfall in recorded history. That record had just been broken 6 weeks ago by a pre-Christmas storm. But for the president, it was a working weekend. He spoke to a Democratic National Committee meeting and gave a memorable name for a storm that will be remembered for ages.
Snowmageddon here in D.C.
The drought ravaging China's southwest is being called the worst in a century. In Yunnan province alone, hundreds of small reservoirs that are a lifeline for local villages have dried up or soon will. Vast areas of terraced fields that should be lush with vital winter crops instead look like deserts, their normally rich soil as hard as rocks. The government says the drought has affected more than 60 million people like Tsai across the southwest. Unfortunately for him, meteorologists predict the drought will likely last to May and possibly even longer.
Some of Nashville's most recognizable landmarks are underwater. Downtown Nashville resident Kevin Farron says all that water from nearly 14 inches of rain over the weekend had to end up somewhere. That somewhere is the Cumberland River. It submerged parts of the historic downtown when it reached 12 feet above flood stage Monday, the highest level in 73 years. 19 people in Tennessee are confirmed dead from rising waters and a tornado. Another 10 are dead in Kentucky and Mississippi. There are fears that more bodies will be found once the water recedes.
It was here that the river surged so quickly and violently, sweeping away all in its path, including tents filled with sleeping campers. Water levels rose suddenly during a torrential downpour, from only 3 feet at midnight Thursday to more than 23 feet by early Friday morning. The campsite in the rugged Ouachita National Forest was crowded with families on vacation. The isolated area where campers need to hike in and out had spotty phone service. It made rescue operations difficult.
Up and down the Northeast, as the holiday weekend winds down, the heat wave of 2010 picks up. For Tuesday, expected highs of 100 in D.C., Philly, and New York during the day, and only limited relief at night.
Temperatures at night in many of these locations along the eastern seaboard will fail to fall below 70 degrees, so as a result, your house or even outside never really cools.
The heat comes on the heels of an already record-setting month in many spots. Philly, Washington, and Miami all had their hottest Junes ever.
Across vast swathes of western Russia, firefighters are battling the flames from the air and on the ground. The highest temperatures in 130 years have turned Russia's forests into furnaces. More than 400 separate fires raged in a single day. Thousands have set crops and peat bogs ablaze across an area the size of Portugal. Entire villages, this one near the city of Nizhny Novgorod, are burned to the ground. Its wooden houses were engulfed by raging fires in less than 20 minutes. In the Russian capital, choking smog from the fires is blanketing the city. Its population of 10 million warned to stay inside to avoid pollution more than 10 times the safe level.
This is the first time I've ever experienced anything like this, so.
Richard Barzahi and his family have been watching the flames get closer and closer to their home. Richard says they are packed and ready to go.
Clothes, pictures, documents you need, passports, things like that.
The key here is not necessarily to protect structures, it is to protect these power lines.
That's one of our primary priorities today because these lines support power through Southern California.
The fire, which authorities believe started from a spark caused by someone changing a tire, has destroyed more than 8,000 acres.
More torrential monsoon rain is forecast, hampering evacuation and relief work as the floodwaters continue to surge south. The Pakistan Met Office today expressing alarm as it predicted a weekend deluge in the south. The UN, too, warning that the catastrophe threatens to worsen with ever larger tracts of land submerged. There are worries that a dam could burst. 500,000 people are urgently being moved out of harm's way along the lower Indus River. This is Punjab, Pakistan's fertile rice bowl, where this year's rice crop is destroyed. What happened here could be a taste of things to come in southern Sindh, downriver. The rain is still lashing down in places, and from above, a view of the orchard oceans of Punjab.
1,261 villages have been affected. Around 1.5 million population has been rendered homeless.
But government officials do not have a grip on this crisis, and Pakistan's Islamist humanitarian groups have capitalized on this in the worst hit areas, amongst the poorest of the poor.
Have you seen any government officials? There is no one from the government here. The only ones providing help are our Muslim brothers, and we're not here for political reasons. We're simply here to provide help.
We would like the government to help us and give us food, but we are grateful to this group for providing aid, and if one day they need our help, we will be ready to sacrifice ourselves for them.
This year's dry season is being called one of the worst in decades for Brazil's Amazon rainforest. Key waterways and rivers are completely parched, leaving 25 towns along the water to declare a state of emergency. So far, the severe months-long drought has affected 40,000 people in communities who depend upon the South American rainforest for sustenance. Crops have also been damaged in the dry spell.
The drought is severe and it ruined the entire plantation we cultivate. Besides, the fish is very cheap. There is no point in fishing, arriving in Manaus and taking a box full of fish to make some $12.
Residents of Nonthaburi, 20 kilometres north of the Thai capital Bangkok, are feeling the impact of the worst flooding in the country in decades. Some are travelling around the flooded village with relative ease by boat, while others are forced to put up with the inconvenience. More than 3 million people in 36 provinces have been affected by the floods, and around 59 people have been killed. But waters in many provinces are receding, flowing into lower areas like Nonthaburi and Bangkok.
Flooding in Venezuela. Thousands have been forced to flee their homes as rising rivers and landslides kill at least 21 people. President Hugo Chavez has declared an emergency in 3 states and Caracas and has pledged a swift response effort. Long lines have formed at official points where families can register for temporary accommodation. Meanwhile, the OPEC member states' 2 largest oil refineries were closed because of the emergency and are slowly restarting.
While the Northern Hemisphere battles a winter freeze, Argentina is in the middle of a stifling heat wave. Temperatures soared to 36 degrees Celsius in Buenos Aires, and staying outdoors meant battling the heat and humidity with little or no wind. Weather authorities have put the capital on a red alert, meaning the heat wave poses health risks to the population.
The heat wave has produced heightened temperatures over successive days, temperatures that extend from 35 or 36 degrees, including reaching a peak of 42 degrees in some points in the interior of our country.
This is what Southern Californians feared most, a torrent of water, a sea of mud. This entire neighborhood east of Los Angeles buried. Days of pounding rain meant the ground could absorb no more. Huge pools of water surrounded the San Diego hotel. Guests had to scramble to higher floors, waiting to be rescued by boat.
Way underwater.
At nearby Qualcomm Stadium, 50% of the field is submerged. Insurance adjusters could barely keep up or stand up. And store owners are hoping to salvage what they can with just 2 shopping days left until Christmas. As the storm moves east, homes in Arizona are losing ground. 4 have already been lost. Now the cleanup begins. To put this in some perspective, Los Angeles got half of its annual rainfall in just 1 week, too much for the soil to absorb.
Hundreds of thousands of people have been adversely affected by the thick blanket of snow covering much of northern Europe. It is airports which have suffered the worst of the disruption. Geneva, Edinburgh, Basel and Frankfurt were all closed for a time. London Gatwick, Europe's 8th busiest airport, is closed for a second full day and won't reopen until Friday at the earliest.
Well, after the 20 centimetres of snow we saw yesterday, a further foot fell through the night. Unprecedented conditions for this time of year.
The knock-on effect has been that even at those airports which remained open, there were hundreds of flight cancellations and significant delays and disruption. Across Europe, thousands of drivers and their whole families have been stranded, prevented by the snow from reaching their destinations. This may be the earliest and heaviest snow since 1993, but what used to be shrugged off as the unpredictable weather is now becoming more of an annual event.